Hi, welcome to Day 2 Color with me, Whimsical Toy Shop Tales. So yesterday I've launched this coloring page where anyone can just download it for free and then paint together with me using my watercolor brush pack. And I also talk about my watercolor brush pack, which has a new update ready that has better opacity for almost all the brushes, and also brand new 2 brushes in the brush pack as well. That's gonna help you in this coloring journey, and an important special update for the Superstar brush as well. So yesterday we finished some of the background and the decor. Today I will also show you how to get beautiful water bleeds with one of the new brushes in the watercolor brush pack from the new update. And after that we're going to work with the remaining decor and the typography. So this is going to be a huge progress today as well, and I hope you enjoyed today's coloring page journey together with me. Let's jump right into day 2. So we're going to jump right into the bushes and pot layer, and we're just going to drop a green color onto this layer so we can see what's going on. There's only one spot that is not green, which is this part here. There's some galaxy that you have to paint in blue. So we're going to do this part and then just paint the clouds and the stars first before we proceed to the bushes. For the bushes, just apply a wash first for the gradient, then use the dabbing brush to drop in the textures of the leaves in graduating darker colors. Once that's done, you can pick the surrounding brighter colors to paint some leaves manually using the well-behaved brush or just any liner brushes that you have in the brush pack. After that, you can use the smudge tool with the bleeding wash brush loaded in to just blend outwards from the painted leaves. You can repeat the process for the other bushes. The colors are already side by side in the palette. The green and the blue right next to it, they are already all there for you. After this, you're going to work on the pots and the holders for the plants. So just do like a 2 to 3 tone kind of thing where you just paint the base color, then 1 color for the highlight, and 1 color for the shadow. But if you just want to keep it even more simple, just go for 2 tone, which is just the base and the shadow. If the colors are very vibrant like these browns and the reds, you're going to have to figure out the shadow color on your own. So you just pick a darker variant of the color for the shadows. Just use the colors from the color palette when you're picking for the shadows. It's going to be easier that way because the palette is designed to be harmonious. But if the colors is a bit muted and neutral, then you gotta follow back the rule from before where all the shadows are like purple and then the object color will go after you paint the shadow. So you can see here for these planters, even though I'm using like a variety of colors, it still looks harmonious because initially when you paint the layer, you actually dropped a green down first, right? So we're actually layering on top of green, and there's really like a unifying color because of that, since all the colors are like transparent in watercolors. In this layer, you're also preparing the background for the leaves, so make sure you drop in some texture first. And now we're going to move on to the next layer, which is Decor 1. So this layer has a lot of decorations, and we're just going to have a simple 2 to 3 tone coloring method again in order to get quick progress. In this coloring page, the shadows are like grayish purples, but as you get further into the sky and into the horizon, everything else gets more purple as well. So all the buildings in the receding horizon are also purple and in light blues. But when it comes to the building that's closer to us, we want to maintain a warm temperature to differentiate the difference in distance. There's also another workflow for getting shadows. So here I'm using bleeding wash. It's a very transparent wash, and all I'm doing is just layering again and again. Each time I layer, the color gets darker and these become my shadow. I'm just using the transparency to layer so that I can shade my object instead of picking a different color. So this can help save you time if you know what brush to use. After that, I'll just finish off by layering some purples over it for the shadows to give it a different shade of color. Now I'm working on the roof for the shop lots, and for these shop lots I wanted the stripes to have irregularities so that they look a lot more hand painted and organic that way. I'm also adding some bleeds using the bleeding wash. Anything grey or white are going to be in shades of purple. We have to remember that since this is an afternoon, any surface that's facing above would be the brightest. So like the top of the roof or the floor then these areas will be the brightest. And when working on the roof, even though the colors are like red and blue, I use different types of reds and different types of blue to give a variety across the roof, because it's watercolor, and when you layer it this way, you get interesting effects that looks natural. So some of the reds are actually oranges, and some of the blues, the shadows are like purples and pinks. Then after that, I'm just going to paint the highlights along the edge of the roof. Generally, you will want to make sure that any areas that are bright, those colors are going to be a lot more vibrant, and when they are in the shadows, the colors are going to be muted and have shades of like purples and pinks. For the tiny decorations, you can use any color that you like. Just make sure that you drop in shadow colors first or overlay them after that. For me, I like to use the solid coloring brush so that I can just quickly go over all these areas, and if I want to, I can just create bleeds by smudging them with the bleeding wash brush. Again, you don't really have to worry about what color to use because we dropped in a universal color first before we begin coloring, and every time you color, you're actually layering transparent layers of color, so they will appear unified and they will appear harmonious regardless of what color you use. So there's like two types of shadow colors. Like you see here, these blues, right? When it comes to the shadows, it's actually a vibrant darker blue. And there's another type where if you paint the same blue and the shadows are going to be like the muted purples. So if it's vibrant colors, you would want the shadows to be strong and vibrant as well. But if the colors are meant to be muted, then obviously you will have to use the purple colors for the shadow color. Like for example, this bench. The seat itself is muted because it has like purple shadows, but this pink back seat is vibrant because it does not have like purple shadows. So you can control how vibrant and muted the colors is just by changing the color of your shadow. So for aesthetics sake, all these icons, you will want to keep them as vibrant as possible in order to create like a whimsical, harmonious mood. But of course, if you're going for a more realistic approach, then everything has to be muted according to the law of physics and light. So here I'm still undecided on how to paint the charms, so I'm just putting on some placeholder colors first until I figure it out later on. But for these other components, I'm very clear about what I want. I want like really strong, vibrant colors, so the shadows are going to reflect that as well. Basically, an artwork is about the balance of like what's in the light and shadow. Like here, what's inside the gumball machine has to be muted because it's behind a glass and it has a lot of shadows. Especially those items in the shop. The shop is going to have a lot of decoration, but then they cannot be very vibrant because they're actually all in shadows. So it has to be really balanced out that way, and there's going to be a lot of purples and shadows here in order to balance that out. Especially for these characters that are in the shadow, they need to be really muted out. So make sure you really load on all the shadow color first. Remember to always zoom out to check like the harmony of the piece first. In case certain areas are like over vibrant, you can just add more shadows. So now we go on to the signs layer, which are all the typography, and we're just going to quickly fill in those coloring elements first before we do the typography. For this layer, we will mostly be using the solid coloring brush and the well-behaved brush and the liners to do the typography. So when you do the typography, you can see that I am not letting go of the stroke. The moment you let go, the stroke is going to overlap itself. So you have to create a situation where you don't have to overlap. Like say here, when I overlap, it starts to have a darker spot already. So make sure you turn off the typography layer to check first, then proceed accordingly, because at the end of the day, we are turning off the typography layer. I also want to stress that you do not have to be precise when it comes to typography, because this is a painting, not a print. So you gotta have some mistakes here and there or some white spots in order to show that this is actually like hand painted. So make sure that like you don't stress yourself too much in trying to get like perfect strokes. In the new version 2 update for the watercolor brush pack, I have this new brush called Crispy Eraser and White Bloom brush. So this is quicker than the original counterpart. Now let's talk about white typography. Instead of using the eraser, you are going to use the new brush called the Crispy Eraser and white bloom brush, and then load white in and do the typography using that brush. It's gonna be quicker because at this point of time I haven't even created the brushes yet, and I was so slow, but I've created the brushes after that for this purpose, and it's gonna be quicker for you that way. This will also give you like beautiful blooms whenever you use it to paint. Some of the signs like this one are like mini paintings. So when it comes to mini paintings, you want to have a fast workflow of like just dropping in opaques with the solid coloring brush or superstar or well-behaved brush. Then after that, just use the smudge tool to get bleeds. I have a couple of mailboxes that are really cute, and you can just quickly work on them using the solid coloring brush and just do the typography. Just put in some highlights for the edges and you're good to go. For the typography, you're gonna have to keep testing what brush you want to use for each sentence. Like maybe you can try the liner brushes or just use the solid coloring brush if you want a quicker output. If you don't want to worry about opacity, I would say just go for the solid coloring brush, especially when it's a huge color difference like this. But when the letters are really small, I would suggest you just change to any brush that you are comfortable with. You should just take the time to slowly enjoy the typography. And when you're ready, we're gonna work on this poster here. For this poster, it's gonna be a traditional watercolor style, so we're gonna explore bleeds using the bleeding wash brush. So bleeding brushes works when you have a darker background and you paint lighter color over it, then you get like beautiful bleeding edges. So you should just focus on dropping in bleeds all the time before you use the smudge tool to smudge them into shapes that you want. Then you can also use like the eraser and white bloom, the crispy version or the non-crispy one, to put in some erased spots. So you can use this same type of treatment and workflow for other areas that you think would benefit from like traditional painting methods. For the typography and posters inside the shop, it's very important for you to get the values right first. They need to be in the shadow, so they cannot be too vibrant or too bright, or else they're just gonna pop out like the rest of the illustration. Even the typography, they cannot stand out or be vibrant like the rest in the artwork. So it's best to use like wet liners, bleeding liners to do the posters in the shop instead of using solid coloring brush, because this would give you more layering capability. Try to make like all the decor that we paint in the shop don't stand out today, because tomorrow we'll be painting the important ones, the real characters. So what you can do is, for everything in the shop today, just make sure you have like pleasing combinations of colors when it comes to like shadow and the object color. Then we will reserve the most vibrant and intricate coloring and detailing for tomorrow. As for the typography, just enjoy working with textures and make sure that they are dark enough to be visible in the shadows as well. If not, you can just overpaint another layer to get the typography to be darker, like here. Once you are out of the shop and painting typography and signs for items and objects outside of the shop, you can then use more vibrant color, because these are like bathed in sunlight, so they have a lot more color, except for the surfaces that's facing the floor. So these are gonna be like really bathed in shadows. So whatever's that's on the left are actually designed like packages and boxes that resembles cardboard. So you can use this inspiration to color them. For smaller objects, you can use simpler techniques like the 2-tone or 3-tone technique and just paint shadows and one base color. But for this yellow package that's really big, it's gonna require a lot more detail than that. So even like the typography is gonna have like some sort of lighting and shadow on it. This box here is one of the highlights of the piece, so make sure that you spend some time to shade it properly and to give it some highlights and glossiness. Then the other last typography that is also a featured one is the charm machine. So the moment I say that if they are the featured, they're gonna have like highlights, better modeling, and a cast shadow. So you can see that there's a foliage on the top left corner, so this is gonna cast a shadow over the words, and then the words gonna have a more prominent shadow as well. After this, we will be done for today. Okay guys, thank you so much for following this journey all the way to day 2. It's finally over and tomorrow is the last day where we finish the characters and the foliage. So I can't wait for you to join me for tomorrow's finale. I hope to see you tomorrow. Remember to comment, like and subscribe. Bye!